Do you think people are hardwired to make bad financial decisions?
I think we're not wired to make good financial decisions, which I think is a subtle but important nuance there. So, I mean, I think we probably ought to define what a good or bad financial decision is. And a bad one is something that kind of makes us worse off, either in the immediate term or potentially longer term. And those bad decisions generally are knee-jerk, quick decisions or reactions. Finance, by definition, because it's such a long-term thing, certainly, good habits to build wealth, most of us are not going to win the lottery, become Premiership footballers. We're not going to get rich quick. Most of us get rich more slowly. And because it's a multi-decade endeavor, we are, to think over multiple decades is not how we're wired, at least not in a fundamental sense. We're obviously capable of that, but we have to do that intentionally. I think we're more likely wired to be sort of fight or flight, instant response. Something happens, we got to do something instead of taking a beat, thinking about it and implementing intentionally. So I talk about being intentional all the time. I just don't think we're built to do that naturally. It's something we've got to work on, I think. So rather than being sort of wired to make bad decisions, I just don't think we're wired to make better ones. We need to kind of fix that wiring and work on it as we get older.
Because in the context of evolution, which I know you've looked at as well as part of your understanding of self, most men would be dead by 35. Throughout most of history. So
I mean, all of history, except for the last less than 100 years.
Yeah, I don't know if women were slightly longer, but I bet life expectancy was still below 40, right, for women as well. So yeah, thinking to 65, 70 is pretty alien. Thinking to 100, which is kind of retirement planning now needs to think to those kind of levels, doesn't it?
It makes no sense to our physiology to think that long term. We're also in a world which is just impossibly complex compared to the world that we evolved in, where our social circle was the sort of immediate tribe, obviously going back to prehistoric times, but even, latterly, we were just talking about where we're both from and stuff. And I mean, even just like 2 or 3 generations ago, I live in the far west of Cornwall, people never went anywhere. They never went past Truro, let alone up here to London, just because it was really difficult to do that. And so they just couldn't conceive of a world which was bigger than their immediate circle. Whereas if we've got to invest in global equities and try and sort of have a thought of, the macroeconomics and what the impact of the American election is going to be and all that sort of stuff, that just is enough to blow our sort of lizard brain. Really, I just don't know how we can do that without really working on it intentionally. We said sort of earlier on, we're kind of taught what to think and not how to think. So, I spent 15 years producing content around the basics of finance. I'm convinced that if you get the basics right for long enough and consistently enough, you'll be okay, despite an increasingly challenging world and, all the stuff that we talk about all the time. But very often we limit ourselves, I think, and we say, well, the world is what it is. I'm never going to be able to earn anymore. I'm never going to be able to buy a house. I think that's a sort of limiting factor. And if we surround ourselves with people who say the same stuff, that's where our socialized mind, I think, is going to be limiting and limited into what we can achieve. But if we push through that and say, well, actually, I will learn how to be a better investor. I will learn how to put in place sort of decision crutches, I want to say, sort of ways that I can pre-think my decisions. I will learn how to do that, and I will become better with my finances as a result. We can do that. We just need to decide to do it and then push through.
This is a clip from our chat with Pete Matthew, the godfather of this YouTube finance game, also Damien's dad.
Pappy.
El Jefe.
Click
here for the full episode.